Good afternoon, everyone. Can I get a good afternoon, everyone, please? Can I just say, firstly, that one of the worst things that happens when I give talks and people find out that I'm a scout for Arsenal, after the talk, what usually happens is we never end up talking about what I spoke about, but we end up talking about whether people want tickets to go watch Arsenal or football. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very important issue, an issue which is very important to me, an issue which is very important to my friends, and an issue which is very important to many young people across Britain. And hopefully will be very important to you after this talk today. So on the evening of the local and the European elections in May 2014, I had two very mixed feelings. Of course, I was very delighted and happy to be elected as the youngest ever councillor for Hackney and one of the youngest ever for Britain. But at the same time, I was very confused and very frustrated. And you might be thinking, why was I confused or why was I frustrated? Well, it's because I remember clearly on that morning, I spoke to many of my friends, and including my fiancée too, which I've been talking to her about the elections for 1 year. And a lot of them were hesitant to go out and vote. And I was very frustrated and confused because these are the same people that day in and day out talk to me about issues which I know that politics has a direct effect on. And I just couldn't understand why was it that the same people who expressed these issues to me just didn't see the ballot box as a form of expression. Now, as some of you may know, in 2010, in the last general elections, only 44% of 18 to 24-year-olds went out to vote. But that doesn't mean that young people are not interested in politics. As I said, I meet people day in, day out, which talk about issues which affect them most. Young people are volunteering more than any other time in previous history. There is a lot of young people involved in social action projects. So today, what I will do is I will talk to you about three major issues which I think are obstacles in disengaging young people and politics, and hopefully provide three simple solutions which can be a solution both in the short and in the long term. Okay, so the first one is often people say politics and sports, but I say sports and politics. So what does that mean? So as I've already said, politics can be in part of everyday life, whether it could be sports, and you often hear people say, oh, there's a lot of politics in boxing, there's a lot of politics in football, there's a lot of politics in everything. But at the same time, there is a lot of sports in politics, which is unhealthy for the future of Britain and puts off young people from getting involved in politics too. This is the sporting-like behaviour of supporting political parties like you are supporting a football team, or like you are supporting a boxer when they go out to the boxing ring, or like you are supporting a rugby team too. Now, over the years, the number of membership for all political parties across Britain have declined, and particularly for the number of youth membership. And we have to understand what is the duty of political parties. The duty of political parties is to serve the best interests of Britain, in this case we're talking about Britain, and the people of Britain. So why is it that we have such behaviour, sporting-like behaviour, where we support these political parties like, we are supporting a football team? So I just want to ask any of you here, have any of you watched Prime Minister's Question Time? Put your hand up if you have. Right? Okay. I mean, as far as I can remember, when I was in school, when you used to shout at each other, the only thing we used to get was a 1-hour detention. Right? And if some of you follow, for example, on Twitter, you would see Piers Morgan and Alan Sugar, who one of them supports Arsenal and one of them supports Tottenham. They often just shout at each other and say, we are better than you at this, we've done this in the past, and we've done that. And to me, it sounds the same thing as watching Prime Minister's Question Time. You get an apolitical party who will talk about what they've done in the past, what they will do in the future, why the other party is wrong, and it's the same thing with the other party again. Partisanship is unhealthy for the future of Britain. Many young people find it very difficult to identify themselves with the political parties currently situated in Britain. And there are many reasons for this, and I'll explore this later on in the talk as well. But one of them as well, which can be explored much further, is with the intensification of globalization, the growing cultural sameness. I could have same values and cultural similarities to someone in China, in Africa, wherever in parts of the world, and this could shape our politics. And as a result, left-wing and right-wing politics, although it may not seem like that in recent times because of the media's platform, is deteriorating. So therefore, young people find it more difficult to align themselves with political parties, and the partisanship behaviour that comes out of this only pushes young people more away from politics. Can I just say, before I move on to the next slide, that after writing this slide, I actually realised how good of a quote it was. So I just want to sort of claim the copyright wherever it is before we go on. The second factor which pushes away young people away from politics is apathy towards Westminster. As I said, young people are not apathetic in politics, they are apathetic towards the Westminster bubble, the term politics. And recent events such as the MP's expenses scandals, policies which do not favour young people, the scrap of the EMA, rising tuition fees, employment opportunities that were promised to young people that are not being delivered on, are all factors in which pushes away young people from politics. And young people do not see Westminster as a form of expression in trying to engage themselves and voice their concerns. I was most recently together at a coffee with a famous sports presenter, and she mentioned to me that when she went to, she was at the Parliament, and she went there for a meeting, and when she went to that meeting, she said that she felt very odd, and she said, and she's usually that sort of person which, you know, always loves to talk, but for some reason she just felt very, very, she couldn't voice her concerns. So I asked her, why was that? And she just said to me, Mete, I just felt that this wasn't my place to talk. I felt like it was very elitist. I felt like I never came from the right background to be able to do that. And this just proves that if you want to engage young people with the right institutions, the institutions have to be reflective of the demography and the demographics and young people, whether it is women, etc. The third point which pushes young people away from politics is the two wrong sides of the argument. One is the Russell Brand side, which says that, you know, you shouldn't vote because there's a problem with the system, which we all acknowledge, but he says, you know, it's not going to fix it, so let's go and revolt. And the other side, which supports, without knowing, Russell Brand's claim, is the side which says, oh, if young people don't vote, well, then you don't have the right to have a voice, and, you know, you have to vote. But hold on a second. What reason have you given these young people to go out and vote? And the more you come out and the more you patronize young people, the more you don't give them any reason to vote, how do you expect young people to engage with the political process? So what I'm going to do now to you is I'm going to provide you 3 basic solutions which I think could be very beneficial both in the short and in the long term. Solution 1, political education. I don't mean political education in the sense that says A party stands for this, B party stands for that, C party stands for that. There are good tools out there, such as like voter advice application apps, which I think are helpful for everyone. But when I mean political education, I'm more referring specifically to how to engage in the right processes and how to voice your concerns about any issue through the right democratic process. Now, historically, if you look at the policies tend to favour people who are from the higher class, people who are more knowledgeable. And the reason for that is simply because they understand the processes. So if they've got an issue, they know which councillor to go to, they know which MP to go to, they know what institution, which authority, they know where to approach. And these might seem like a little, you know, it might not seem as a major thing, but it is very important. And when I mean political education, I mean introducing this into the national curriculum in secondary schools and teaching young people how to voice their concerns through the right democratic means. Now, you might have seen the London riots recently. I'm not justifying their actions because I'm not saying it's because of the lack of knowledge they had, but initially there were people who were frustrated at issues and they didn't know how to address those issues, so thus they resorted to rioting on the street. So in order to try to raise the concerns and to voice, we definitely do need more political education. Second solution is changes to current voting methods. I mean, I still don't understand what the debate around online voting is. You know, let's be honest, Who uses online banking here? How many people use online banking? Just before I came out to this talk, I spoke to a number of my friends, and I said to them, if one had to be compromised, like you knew that one was going to be compromised, either your finances, someone was going to hack into your finances, or someone was going to find out who you voted for. And I asked 10 people, all 10 of them said, I'd rather someone find out who I voted for. If you could trust your finances online, what is the problem with having online voting? There is no problem, there is no obstacle. You don't have to opt in. If you want to opt in, you can opt in. But I could be voting while I'm watching Big Bang Theory and on my laptop. And just imagine. And, people say there's a counter-argument to it which says that, well, there's a really good atmosphere when you go to vote. Okay, I'm going to tell you my first experience. In 2014, when I was elected, it was the first time I was eligible to vote. I wasn't old enough in 2010. And I went in there, so, and I heard this on Sky News, someone was talking about the atmosphere of voting. So I went in there. Firstly, it was empty. Secondly, you had people that I couldn't engage with, like, they were much older than me. And I remember going in there, and literally, the person that gave me my ballot paper was about to have a heart attack when I was about to use a pen instead of a pencil. And when I came out there, I thought to myself, is this the atmosphere that young people want to experience? No, it's not. Another method in which we can change our voting methods and make it more suitable to young people is by having compulsory voting. But compulsory voting, not by itself. You need to go with the compulsory voting, you need political education, and you need to have fines, and the reason why I say compulsory voting is that because if the government or any political party knew that everyone had to vote, then their policies that were going to be formulated have to be attracted to the wider audience. And solution 3, institutions need to reflect and inspire young people. And this isn't just young people as well. This could be related to people from ethnic minority communities, more women in politics and parliament. And I think this is the most important thing. I mean, as a person, I give it from my personal experience. Ever since I've been a councillor, I've had so many young people who come up to me and say, I never knew I could get into politics at that young age. How did you do it? And having that sense of people being able to approach you or approach someone that represent them about key issues or about how they can go in just further adds to the ability to actually engage young people in politics. And I think it's very, very important that for the future of this country, if we want to live in a country where all groups of our society are part of the decision-making process, institutions need to definitely reflect and inspire young people. And people say sometimes, the young people, there are young people in Parliament. The average age of an MP is 51. The average age of a councillor is 60. 60, yeah? I got invited to a young councillors conference when I first got elected. Do you know what the age? They said it was under 40s. I thought under 40s. That is what they classify as young people, young councillors. And this is a serious issue. I know we're laughing about it, but it is a serious issue. And we need to have someone in Parliament who is actually 18 to 24 and not 35. So, with that, I want to say this. Let's learn from the past, let's embrace the present, and together, everyone, let's be the change, and I dare you to dream to be the change. Thank you.